David Harris was a man like any other. He worked a 9-to-5 job at a small tech company in the city, just trying to make ends meet. At 35, his life had settled into a quiet routine. He wasn't rich, but he wasn't poor either. His days were filled with meetings, emails, and the occasional lunch with coworkers, but he always looked forward to the end of the day. That's when his real life began. David's most important role in life was being a father. Lily, his 8-year-old daughter, was everything to him. He had raised her on his own ever since his wife, Emily, had left them when Lily was just a toddler. Emily had moved to another city, leaving David with full responsibility for raising their child. Though they had their differences, David never let that get in the way of being a good father. His daughter deserved a stable and loving home, and he was determined to provide that for her. Lily had grown up to be a bright and curious little girl, full of energy and questions. Every day she would ask David about his day, about his work, and about the world. David did his best to answer, but the truth was, he didn't always know the answers. He didn't have all the solutions to life's problems, and sometimes he felt lost in his role as a single parent. But he never let it show. He tried his best to be everything she needed, even when he didn't feel like he had the strength. One thing that kept David going was his love for Lily. He worked long hours at the office, but when he came home, he'd make dinner, help her with her homework, and read her stories before bed. It was a simple life, but it was his life, and he cherished it. On the days when Lily wasn't in school, they would go to the park together. David would sit on a bench, watching her run around with other kids. He'd smile to himself, thinking how lucky he was to have her. Though life was sometimes difficult, moments like these made it all worth it. But even in the quiet suburb where they lived, things were changing. Earth had become part of something much larger than it had ever imagined, a galactic community. The government had signed agreements with alien species to open up trade, cultural exchanges, and even diplomatic relations. Earth was no longer just a small, isolated planet in the universe. It had become part of a growing network of worlds. Still, for most people, life went on as usual. People went to work, raised their families, and went to bed. David was no different. He paid little attention to the news about the growing intergalactic relationships, finding it all too complicated and far removed from his daily life. Then, one evening, David's life took an unexpected turn. It was a Wednesday, the middle of the week, and Lily was excited about a school field trip. She had been talking about it for days, eagerly telling David all about the event. It was a visit to a local government facility that was hosting a special diplomatic event with an alien species. The event was meant to showcase Earth's place in the galactic community, and the school had been invited to attend as part of a larger educational program. "Dad, you have to come with me," Lily had said, her eyes wide with excitement. "You can meet the aliens." David had laughed, but he agreed to go. It wasn't every day that a regular person like him got a chance to see aliens in person. It seemed like a rare opportunity, so he decided to take a break from work and join Lily on the trip. The government facility wasn't too far from their home, and David didn't have to worry much about traffic. He picked Lily up from school, and they drove to the event together. As they walked into the large, modern building, David couldn't help but feel a little out of place. The security was tight, and there was an air of formality in the hallways. He had never been in a place like this before. Inside, there were people everywhere, officials in suits, scientists, and diplomats. There were also a few aliens, though they mostly kept to themselves. David saw one that looked like a large, floating jellyfish, and another that had 6 arms and glowing eyes. He had no idea how to act around them. It wasn't like he'd ever had much interaction with other species before. He couldn't help but stare at them, wondering what they were thinking, what they saw when they looked at humans. "Don't be rude, Dad," Lily whispered, tugging at his sleeve. "They can see you staring." David quickly turned his head, embarrassed. "Sorry, Lily, I've never seen anything like this before." Lily giggled, looking up at him. "It's okay, Dad. Just don't stare too long, you'll look like a weirdo." David smiled at her, grateful for her lightheartedness. He knew she wasn't as nervous as he was. She was young, and everything seemed new and exciting to her. He wished he could see the world through her eyes again, with that same sense of wonder. They moved through the facility, listening to various presentations about Earth's role in the Galactic Council. David's attention drifted, but he kept an eye on Lily, who was listening intently to everything the speakers had to say. As they passed a hallway, Lily stopped in her tracks. Her eyes widened as she looked up at the sign on the door. "Dad, look, it says private, no entry." David glanced at the sign and shrugged. "That's just for people who are in charge, honey. We're not supposed to go in there." But Lily was already tugging at his arm. "Come on, Dad, just for a second. I bet we could peek inside. Maybe we'll see something cool." Before David could protest, Lily had already slipped through the door, pulling him along with her. He hesitated for a moment, then followed her, figuring they wouldn't be in there long. The hallway was dimly lit, and David could hear muffled voices coming from a room further down the corridor. It was quieter here than in the main event area, and there was an odd feeling in the air, like something important was happening. Lily reached the door at the end of the hall and hesitated. "Do you think we should go in?" David didn't know what to say. He wasn't sure if they were supposed to be in this part of the building. But curiosity got the better of him, and he nodded. "Okay," he said quietly, "but only for a second. We're not supposed to be here." Lily smiled and pushed the door open just a little. As it creaked, David's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure if they were about to walk into trouble or find something amazing. He didn't expect what he saw next. The door creaked open just enough for David and Lily to slip inside, their footsteps barely making a sound on the smooth floor. David's heart was racing as they stepped into the dimly lit room. It was far more quiet than the bustling halls outside, and the air felt different here, charged with a strange energy. The room was small but elegant, with large windows that looked out over the city below, their view partly obscured by long, flowing curtains. Soft lighting made everything seem almost dreamlike. David stood frozen for a moment, taking in his surroundings. It didn't look like a typical meeting room, more like a private lounge. The walls were lined with soft, metallic panels that shimmered in the low light, and in the center of the room, there were a few couches arranged around a low coffee table. But what really caught his attention was the figure standing near the large glass window. A tall being dressed in flowing robes of silver and blue turned as the door opened. It wasn't human. Not at all. David's breath caught in his throat. The creature, no, the alien, was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Its skin shimmered, almost metallic in appearance, a soft silver that reflected the light in a strange, mesmerizing way. It had several eyes, 3 on each side of its face, each one a deep shade of purple that glowed faintly. The alien's features were sharp, almost sculptural, with high cheekbones and a long, narrow nose. It didn't look menacing, but its presence was overwhelming, like standing in front of something ancient and wise. Lily, always the curious one, was the first to speak. "Wow. You look so cool." David shot her a look, his face burning with embarrassment. She hadn't exactly whispered, and he was certain they weren't supposed to be here. But the alien didn't seem upset. Instead, it turned fully toward them, its many eyes locking onto David's. For a moment, neither of them moved. The room was so quiet that David could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then, in a voice that was surprisingly calm and warm, the alien spoke. "I was expecting you." David blinked, unsure if he had heard it right. "What?" The alien smiled, if that was a smile, and took a step closer. Its movement was graceful, almost fluid. Despite its strange appearance, David felt no fear. Instead, there was something oddly comforting about its presence, like it was someone he should trust. "I knew you would find this room," the alien said, its voice smooth and melodic. "You are curious just like your kind. It's refreshing." David wasn't sure what to say. He looked down at Lily, who was standing next to him, her wide eyes fixed on the alien. She didn't seem scared, only fascinated. In fact, she was grinning, her earlier fear long forgotten. "Are you an alien?" Lily asked, her voice full of wonder. "Like from outer space?" The alien chuckled, a sound that was soft and almost musical. "Yes, child. I am from a distant star far beyond your planet, but here I am simply a diplomat here to represent my people and our alliance with your world." David was still trying to process everything. An alien diplomat. He had heard about them in the news, of course, but this was nothing like what he had imagined. He had always thought they were cold, distant figures who spoke in formal robotic tones. This alien, this Katari, as it now introduced itself, seemed different. David cleared his throat. "You, know who we are." "Of course," Katari replied smoothly. "I have been studying your species for some time, your resilience, your capacity for love and conflict. I find it fascinating." David felt a strange weight in the alien's words. It wasn't just curiosity that Katari was expressing, it was respect. That was something David hadn't expected. He glanced at Lily again. She was already moving closer to the alien, her face full of wonder as she asked more questions. "Do you have kids?" she asked eagerly. "I bet you do. My dad's got me." Katari nodded, its eyes twinkling. "Yes, I have children, though they are far away. My species, like yours, values the family bond. It is sacred." David felt a strange connection with the alien in that moment. Katari wasn't just some distant being, but someone who understood the importance of family, just like him. Despite the vast difference in their worlds, they shared something deeply human. Lily, never one to hold back, tugged at David's sleeve. "Dad, you should ask them about the stars. I bet they know everything about space." David chuckled nervously, though the last thing he wanted was to make a fool of himself in front of this alien. Yeah, sure. So, Katari, do you? Can you travel to other stars?" Katari's face seemed to soften, the many eyes focusing on him with genuine interest. "Indeed. My species has mastered travel across galaxies. We have seen wonders beyond your wildest dreams, but we are not here just for exploration. We are here to form bonds, to learn from one another." David nodded slowly, still trying to wrap his mind around it all. "And how does that work? I mean, what exactly are you here to do with Earth?" The alien paused for a moment, its glowing eyes turning toward the window as if contemplating something far beyond their small room. "I am here to help your planet grow. Your species is on the cusp of something great, something beyond your current understanding. We are not here to impose, but to guide, to help you step into the future." David felt a lump form in his throat. It was hard to fully grasp what Katari was saying. The future of humanity linked to something so far away. It seemed almost too big for someone like him, just an ordinary man from a quiet suburban neighborhood. Before he could speak, Lily interrupted, her voice full of excitement. "Are you going to teach us all about space? About other planets?" Katari chuckled again, a sound that seemed to echo through the room. "Yes, little one, we will teach you. But it will not happen overnight. Your species must first be ready. It is a journey that will take time, effort, and understanding." David was struck by the calm certainty in Katari's voice. It was clear that the alien wasn't just speaking of distant stars or galaxies. It was speaking of humanity's potential, of the journey that Earth had yet to take. But how could David, a single father, play a part in all of this? He wasn't a scientist, a politician, or even someone with any real influence. He was just a regular guy trying his best to raise his daughter. What did he have to offer in the grand scheme of things? Katari seemed to read his thoughts, its many eyes meeting his gaze. "You wonder why I am speaking with you?" it said, its voice suddenly serious. "Why of all people it is you who found this door?" David didn't know how to respond, so he simply nodded. "The universe has a way of leading us to where we need to be," Katari continued. "You are not here by accident, David Harris. Your journey has just begun." David felt a strange mixture of confusion and awe. Was this really happening? Was this alien diplomat telling him that he had some role to play in the future of humanity? It didn't seem real. And yet, as he looked at Katari, this being from another star, someone who had traveled across galaxies, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life and Lily's was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. He turned to Lily, who was still staring up at the alien with wide eyes. She was completely entranced, and for a brief moment, David realized just how lucky he was. Despite everything, despite the uncertainty of their lives, they had this moment. A moment that few people on Earth would ever experience. The alien diplomat smiled, and for the first time since they had entered the room, David began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something extraordinary. David's mind was racing, his thoughts tangled and swirling around him like a storm. He stood there in that small, quiet room, trying to make sense of what was happening. The alien diplomat, Katari, had just told him that he wasn't there by accident, that his meeting with the alien was no mere coincidence. That his journey, the one he thought had been nothing more than the simple life of a single father, was somehow connected to something far bigger. He glanced down at Lily, who was still captivated by Katari's every word. The alien was talking to her now, explaining things about distant stars and the possibilities that awaited humanity. David could see the excitement in her eyes, the kind of excitement he hadn't seen in her in a long time. He had always done his best to give her a good life, but there was something about this moment that seemed to transcend the ordinary. Lily was hearing things that no other child on Earth had ever heard before, and her curiosity was taking over. "Dad," Lily interrupted David's thoughts, pulling at his sleeve. "Did you hear that? Katari says that one day we might visit other planets." David gave a weak smile and nodded. "I heard, kiddo, but we've got a long way to go before that happens." Lily's face lit up. "But we're part of the council now. Doesn't that mean we get to see the stars, doesn't it?" David didn't know how to answer. He didn't know what Earth's future in the galactic community looked like. All he knew was that he was just a father trying his best to raise his daughter. This felt like something out of a dream. Katari watched the exchange between them, its purple eyes flicking back and forth between David and Lily. "Yes, little one," Katari said with a soft smile, "you will see the stars. But first, you must understand the importance of unity. The universe is vast, and there are many who seek to understand it. But only those who learn to work together, who understand each other's struggles, will truly succeed." David felt his head spin. What did Katari mean by that? Was it some sort of grand, cosmic lesson? Katari took a step closer, its long, silvery robes flowing gracefully behind it. "Humans are special. Your species has an innate ability to overcome obstacles, to rise above the challenges you face. But it is your connections, your bonds with each other, that will allow you to truly thrive in the greater universe." David wasn't sure he understood. He'd spent his whole life just trying to survive the day-to-day grind. He worked, came home, took care of Lily, and repeat. He hadn't thought much about humanity's place in the stars. To him, the future felt distant and uncertain. His world was grounded in the familiar, his small house, his job, his daughter. But Katari's words seemed to stir something in him. He thought about the struggles he had faced as a single father, the loneliness, the frustration, the constant worry. It wasn't easy, and there were times when he thought about giving up. But then there was Lily, always there, her bright smile reminding him why he kept going. David took a deep breath, looking up at the alien. "I don't know what you mean," he admitted. "I'm just a guy. I have a daughter, and I try to give her a good life. I don't have some grand mission or some cosmic purpose." Katari tilted its head, its many eyes narrowing slightly. "Perhaps you do not see it yet, but you are exactly where you need to be. You are the kind of human who will help guide your species to a new chapter, and it is not by strength or intelligence alone that you will succeed. It is by your heart, by the way you care for others, that will change the future of Earth." David blinked, unsure how to respond. He had never thought of himself as anything special. He was just David, Lily's father, a regular guy doing his best. What did Katari mean by all of this? Was it just the alien's way of being kind, or was there something more to it? Lily tugged on David's sleeve again, pulling him out of his thoughts. "Dad, Katari says that the universe is full of stories, stories that we'll get to learn." "Isn't that cool? We're going to be a part of it." David smiled at his daughter, her enthusiasm infectious. Despite all the confusion in his mind, he couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement himself. The idea of something greater than his small, everyday life, something far beyond anything he had ever imagined, was both terrifying and exhilarating. Katari, seeing the exchange between father and daughter, stepped closer and knelt down, its tall form lowering itself to Lily's level. "You are a special child, Lily," Katari said. "You have the gift of wonder. It is that wonder that will help guide your people into a new era. The journey may be difficult, but it will be one worth taking." Lily beamed up at the alien. "I'm going to learn everything I can," she said excitedly. "I'll tell everyone about space, about the stars, and about all the cool things you've told me." David felt his chest tighten at her words. He had always wanted to protect her from the harshness of life, from the struggles he had faced. But now, hearing her talk about the future with such hope and excitement, he realized that maybe, just maybe, he couldn't protect her from everything. Maybe her journey was one she had to take on her own, and all he could do was be there to support her. Katari stood up again, its many eyes focusing on David. "You too, David," the alien said, its voice gentle but firm. "You will have a part to play. This journey is not just for the young. You have a responsibility, too. You must help Lily understand her place in the universe, and you must help Earth understand its place." David's mind swirled with questions, but one thing stood out clearly. The alien was not speaking in generalities. Katari was speaking directly to him. It was like it knew something about him, something he didn't understand. The weight of its words settled heavily on his shoulders. "I'm just a father," David said quietly, his voice filled with doubt. "I don't know anything about space or galaxies or whatever this is." I don't have the answers. Katari's gaze softened almost kindly. You don't need to have all the answers, David, not yet, but the answers will come, and when they do, you will be ready. David didn't know what to say to that. The alien was right, in a way. He didn't have all the answers, but the idea of being part of something bigger, of guiding humanity in a time of change, it seemed too large for him. He wasn't a hero, not by any means. He was just a man doing his best to raise his daughter in a world that was changing faster than he could keep up with. But then he looked at Lily, her eyes wide with wonder as she listened to Katari. And in that moment, David understood. This wasn't just about him. This wasn't just about Earth, either. This was about the future, a future where his daughter would play a part. And maybe, just maybe, David would be there to help her when that time came. Katari stood up again, its eyes scanning the room as if it had said all it needed to. The time is coming, David, the time for change, and you and your daughter will be part of it. The journey is already beginning. David wasn't sure if he was ready for such a journey, but he knew one thing for certain. This moment would stay with him for the rest of his life. No matter where it led, no matter what happened next, he had stepped into something much larger than himself. And he wasn't alone. He had Lily. And together they would face whatever came next. David didn't sleep much that night. His mind raced with thoughts of what had just happened. The meeting with Katari, the alien diplomat who had shared so much wisdom, so much hope about Earth's future, was still fresh in his mind. He had never imagined something like this. One minute he was a regular guy, just trying to make it through another day with his daughter. The next, he was caught up in something far beyond his understanding. As the morning light streamed through the curtains, David sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes. Lily was already awake, bouncing around the house, eager to tell him all about her dreams. David couldn't help but smile at her energy. She had been filled with excitement ever since their encounter with Katari, and now, as always, her enthusiasm seemed boundless. Dad. Dad, Lily called from the kitchen. You have to hear what I thought of last night. I think we're going to be famous. I bet all the kids in school will want to know what Katari said. David chuckled, getting out of bed. I'm sure they will, kiddo, but we'll take it slow, okay? This is a lot to process, and we need to figure out what it all means first. Lily pouted a little, but then nodded. Yeah, I guess, but I can't wait to tell everyone about space. She grinned, clearly unbothered by the need for patience. David got dressed, still trying to piece together the events of the previous day. He couldn't shake the feeling that Katari had chosen him and Lily for something important. But what? Why them? What was so special about their connection? These questions circled in his head, unanswered. As the day went on, David tried to return to his usual routine. He went to work, sat through meetings, and answered emails. But the whole time, his mind kept drifting back to Katari's words. The alien had said that humanity had a special gift. It had spoken about unity, about the importance of working together, about how Earth was on the verge of a new chapter in the galactic community. But David still didn't understand what that meant for him, for Lily, or for Earth as a whole. When David returned home that evening, his thoughts were interrupted by a call from an unknown number. He hesitated but picked up anyway. Hello. A voice on the other end was calm and authoritative. Mr. Harris, this is Director Larkin from the Earth Diplomatic Relations Office. I need to speak with you about an incident that occurred yesterday. David's heart skipped a beat. What incident? The unauthorized access to a restricted area at the government facility, the voice continued. I've been asked to review your involvement along with your daughter S in this matter. David's stomach dropped. Wait, you're talking about Katari's room. Yes, Director Larkin confirmed. We need to understand exactly what transpired when you and your daughter entered the area. This is a matter of security, Mr. Harris. David's mind was spinning. He hadn't meant to cause any trouble. He had never even considered the consequences of wandering into a restricted area. It had all happened so quickly. I didn't know we were in a restricted area, he explained, his voice tight. We were just curious. There was a pause on the other end, and then Director Larkin spoke again, this time in a slightly softer tone. I understand. However, it's crucial that we maintain control over these diplomatic matters. We'll need to schedule a formal meeting with you and your daughter. Can you come in tomorrow? David hesitated, his thoughts racing. Of course, he said, his voice almost too steady. I'll come in. As soon as he hung up, he felt a wave of panic. This wasn't just about him and Lily having a simple misunderstanding. This was bigger. He had stepped into something he didn't fully understand, and now there were consequences. What had Tari said? "You are not here by accident." David wondered if he had somehow been pulled into something that would change the course of his life, and possibly the future of Earth, forever. The next morning, David and Lily arrived at the government facility, a sense of unease settling in the pit of David's stomach. He hadn't told Lily much about the call or the meeting. She was too excited to even notice that something wasn't quite right. As they walked through the cold, sterile hallways of the building, David felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. A few minutes later, they were ushered into a small conference room. It was stark, with a long metal table in the center and a few chairs around it. Director Larkin was already seated, along with a few others in dark suits. They looked official, serious. David tried to steady his nerves as he and Lily sat down. "Mr. Harris, Miss Harris," Director Larkin began, his voice professional but with a hint of concern. "We need to understand exactly what occurred yesterday. It's crucial that we maintain tight security during diplomatic engagements. You and your daughter's presence in a restricted area raises a number of questions. Can you walk us through what happened?" David glanced at Lily, who was sitting beside him, her eyes wide with curiosity. She didn't seem nervous, but David could feel the tension in the air. He took a deep breath and explained everything as honestly as he could, from the moment they entered the building to their discovery of the door that led to Tari's room. Larkin listened carefully, nodding occasionally, but his expression remained unreadable. Once David finished, Larkin turned to one of his colleagues. "And the alien Tari did not express any concern over their presence?" "No," David said, shaking his head. "Tari didn't seem upset. In fact, it seemed like Tari was expecting us. The alien spoke with us calmly and, well, it was a strange conversation, but it didn't seem like it was a problem." Larkin exchanged glances with the others in the room. Then he spoke again. "That's the part we need to address, Mr. Harris. The fact that Tari did not show the proper level of concern is troubling. The ambassador's behavior was uncharacteristic of a diplomatic envoy. We need to know if this was an isolated incident or part of a larger pattern." David didn't know what to say. He had no idea what was really going on behind the scenes. He wasn't a diplomat or an expert in alien relations. He was just a man who had accidentally opened the wrong door and found himself face to face with an alien who had spoken to him as if they were equals. "We didn't mean any harm," David said, his voice more firm now. "We're just regular people. I don't know why Tari acted the way it did, but I don't think it's something to be worried about. It felt like we were supposed to be there." Larkin studied him for a moment, his expression hard to read. Finally, he sighed. "We will look into this further, Mr. Harris, but understand this. Humanity is entering a new era, and with that comes responsibility. We cannot afford to make mistakes, especially when it comes to our relationships with alien species. There is too much at stake." David nodded, the gravity of the situation settling heavily on him. There was more to this than he had imagined. The government's concerns weren't just about the security breach. They were about Earth's place in the galactic community. And somehow, he and Lily were at the center of it. As they left the meeting, Lily remained mostly quiet. She hadn't fully understood the seriousness of the conversation, but David could tell that something had changed in her. She was excited, yes, but there was a quiet intensity in her eyes now, as if she too was beginning to realize that their lives had shifted in a way they couldn't yet understand. David had no idea what the future held. But one thing was clear. His life and Lily's would never be the same again. A single human father opened the wrong door, and what he saw of the alien diplomat changed his life.